afternoon, everybody. My name is Rocco, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Rocco.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Great. I'd like to thank Jamie, and he says his name's Ron, but I've been calling him Rob since I got here. For asking me to be here today to speak with you all. So before I get started, I know you guys did the serenity prayer at the beginning of this thing, so let's go with this. God, what we know not, teach us. What we have not, grant us. And what we are not, make us. These things we ask in your Son's name. Amen. Amen. I don't know anybody here other than Rob and Ron and Jamie and a few people I met at dinner last night. Ross, I talked to on the phone a few times, but everybody else here, I've never laid eyes on you, and you never laid eyes on me. I just want to let you know I'm not the new guy. Oh, this is going to be good. That's usually the barometer. People get that, I know this is going to be a pretty good lead. When they don't get it, okay, can you hear me in the back now? Yeah. Okay. When they don't get it, it looks like it's going to be a long situation. So we're good. All right, start out with this. There was a love of a beautiful maid, and there was a love of a true staunch man, and there was a love of a baby, unafraid. All have existed since times began. But the most wonderful love, the love even greater than that of the mother, is the tender, compassionate, undying love of one drunken bum for another. And I know that because I am a proud member of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything that I have in my life today is a direct result of a loving God and the program and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Not just material stuff. I have some of that, but relationships. And being able to meet two people in Akron, Ohio that I never laid eyes on before that day, and to be here with them, to have dinner last night, to share time and conversation, turn into people that you love. My friends, that doesn't happen anywhere else than in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And for that, I'm truly grateful. You know, my drinking career, isn't it funny how we call it drinking days a career? Yeah, my drinking career lasted a long time, well over 30 years. I was a slow learner. And, but when I finally got it, that's when things began to change. But for me, alcohol was my solution. This movement that you see, this shake, this palsy, this tremor, I think it's politically correct now to call it a movement disorder. Whatever vernacular you use, this is the way I came from the manufacturer. And I wasn't happy about that for a long time. I didn't understand how a loving God could do something like this to a nice guy like me. It wasn't until I got into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and developed that relationship with this God of mine that I began to understand that God has a purpose for everything, for everyone. Everyone in this room is here for a reason. You're no accident, you're no coincidence, you're no second thought. You're a purpose-driven person by God's will and design. Now what we do with that is on us. God loved us so much, he gave us free will. What you do with that free will is up to you. My free will took me to places that I could never imagine. C.S. Lewis said there's two kinds of people in this world. Those who say to God, thy will be done. And conversely, those to whom God says, okay, have it your way, and he'll let you. But when you're ready, because he's a God of second chances, third chances, fourth chances, whatever it takes. But when you're ready, he'll meet you wherever you're at. And that's where it began with me. But I didn't aspire to be an alcoholic. I heard someone say earlier, they're grateful now that they're an alcoholic. People say, how do you become an alcoholic? I never knew how to answer. But then I read The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. And in the book, there's a character named Mike. And Mike said to a few other characters in the book, they discovered that Mike went bankrupt. So the one guy said to Mike, how did you go bankrupt? And Mike said, well, two ways. Gradually at first, and then all of a sudden. And I think for many of us, at least for me, it's for my alcoholism. I heard guys talk about a line. You crossed that line. Man, I didn't see no line. I was way down the field before I even heard about the line. But alcohol was my solution. How could it be a problem? It was a solution because when I drank just enough, these tremors would go away. I'd sit there and steady as the rest of you. That was an attraction for me. Because all I wanted to do, I just wanted to fit in. That was it. Just wanted to fit in. And alcohol let me do that. And it took me a long time to realize that alcohol was not my friend. It was not my solution. But you know, my story starts, I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio. Great parents, great family. My parents remained married. They weren't alcoholics. I didn't live in what was referred to as a dysfunctional home. I was taught right from wrong. I had every advantage. So I can't blame any of that on my situation. But this idea that no one ever treated me different, I didn't realize that I was different. I had friends I played with. We fought, we played, we got in trouble. My first realization of being different started in the 4th grade. I went to a Catholic grade school, and that was a time when we were old enough to be altar boys. So I participated in everything. Just to give you a clue how old I am, we used to still pray in Latin back then. So we had to learn all the Latin prayers. And I did that. God in his wisdom did gift me with a good mind. And so I learned all the prayers, and then we had to have a meeting with our pastor, who was a Monsignor. Monsignor was a tough old word. Scary guy. Always had this intense look on his face. It's like an Excedrin headache. I don't know what that is. Just scary. And the black outfit didn't help out, but that's another story. So we had to have a meeting with the Monsignor to learn what the altar boy needed to do during Mass to help during Mass. So we all funneled into this classroom, and he's sitting at the desk in the front of the room, and I felt him looking at me. Then I heard it. Peril, what are you doing here? And I looked at him, I said, well, I'm going to be an altar boy. He was a man of few words. He said, you can't. See, the Monsignor back then was I think a risk manager. He was worried about liability. And I think the kind of liability he was worried about was during the Catholic Mass and communion. If you have any Catholics in here that remember during communion, the altar boy would have to hold this thing. In our church, it was a brass tray, about that big. Then it had a handle. It was called a paten. Now, if you didn't know better, you'd think it was a weapon, but it wasn't. And then what you had to do was hold the paten by the handle, and then the tray under the parishioner's chin during communion, so if the priest would fumble the communion, it would land on the paten, on the tray, not on the floor. So I think he was worried I was going to pop somebody with that paten. You know, you got all the vital stuff right here. Eyes, nose, teeth, things like that. So I think that was his concern. There was also a young priest in the room that day. And he interceded on my behalf, and he told the old Monsignor that he'd be responsible if anything went wrong. So I became an altar boy. There weren't any incidents that I'm aware of. And I look back now, I'm the least concerned of the Catholic Church, but I learned something that day. It was a realization that I had never experienced before. And that was that people were going to judge me based on how I looked. And that was new to me. Didn't know how to deal with it at first. But I had dreams, I had goals, I had aspirations. I wanted to make something of myself. As I said to you earlier, I was raised by great people, where hard work was the ethic. Education was important. Do the right thing for the right reason all the time. So I knew that there were some professions that probably I could take off the board. I wasn't going to be a barber now or a dentist or anything that involved sharp objects. But there were other things that I could do. And I lived in a neighborhood. There was a family that lived down the street, and they had boys my age. And their father was an attorney, and at that point in time, he was a judge, and he sat on the municipal bench. So I spent a lot of time there. Went on vacation with them. I saw the people that came there, important people. And I thought, wow, I could do this. Law, politics. That was going to be my career path. So I moved in that direction. And you know, where I went to school, it was sort of a cloistered environment. Lived in a little neighborhood on the east side of Youngstown. We all knew one another, like I said, and it wasn't an issue. It didn't become an issue until it was time to go to a large high school in the city, where kids from all over the city were going to be freshmen in high school. Oh yeah, and they were adolescents too. So it was tough. That first year was very, very difficult. You hear about social media bullying today. This wasn't that. This was in your face. And I hated it. So over that summer, I convinced my folks that, you know, there's other kids in the neighborhood that go to the public school. I said the Catholic high school is starting to raise tuition, and I made this excuse for them, for me to be able to go to the public school. And they were reluctant, but they loved me. So as a sophomore, I went to East High School. Back then, we didn't go to school until after Labor Day. And still warm like now. Friday night lights, football, my buddy said, we're going to a football game tonight. You going with us? Heck yeah, man. I participated in everything. They said, we drink. Do you drink? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, my drinking up to that point included maybe the sip of the foam off my father's Carling Black Label, or the straw in an empty glass, an early glass of a highball, or being an Italian heritage, if you went to grandpa's over the weekend to stay and you had any signs of a sniffle, you got some homemade wine warmed up with some sugar before you went to bed for medicinal purposes, and so that was the extent of my drinking to that point. So I said, okay, Friday night, we're going to the game. We get 2 quarts of beer each. Stroh's beer. I don't know if they had Stroh's out this way or not, if that was a regional thing. Stroh's beer, 65 cents a quart. Put me down for 2. So Friday night rolls along, we get this beer, and we're on the east side, the game's on the south side, and that was a warm night, still summer that time of year. And so from the east side to the south side, I drank one of those quarts of beer. It was good and I liked it. And so we got there a little bit early, we parked the car, several of us got out, and we were standing around waiting for a few more carloads of our friends. And we're out there goofing around like kids that age do. And one of my buddies said, hey, look at you. Look at me what? No, look at me. I said, what are you guys talking about? He said, you're not shaking. And I paused and I thought, man, they're right. And at that point in time, that was the greatest moment of my life. The thing that made it more significant, or most significantly that night, was my dad, both my parents, and my dad especially, he was determined to find some solution to this thing. You talk about go to any length, that was him. Back then, you didn't have managed care, health insurance. As long as you had health insurance, you could go anywhere. And he'd take me to specialists or whatever it was. And back then, diagnostic testing, they'd do it in a hospital for weeks at a time. So during the summer, I'd spend summers in the hospital, and they try all these experimental drugs and wouldn't do anything but blur my vision or upset my stomach or whatever it might be. They didn't do anything for the movement though. So after going through all that, for all that time, no success, here I am on a Friday night. I drink a 65-cent quart of beer and I'm cheering. I'm pretty happy. And then that's also, I think, when I had my first alcoholic thought, because I said to myself, wow, if it's this good after one, wait till I drink this other one. And I did, and I had a great time. I got home and I reflected on that evening and thought to myself, wow, this is really something. And I said to myself, probably the most profound thing I've ever said to myself. I said, this stuff's going to change my life forever. Here to tell you, it did. But not in the way that a 16-year-old kid was thinking. I didn't realize it was going to turn me into a liar, into a cheat, into someone who couldn't be trusted, into someone who couldn't lower their standards fast enough to keep up with their behavior. All that happened. Not right away, but over time. The book says cunning, baffling, powerful. I'd argue that it's insidious too, but Bill didn't ask me when he was writing that, so. But I thought, you know what, now I got something here. I got something. It's going to let me just fit in. I still are going to pursue all my dreams and my ambitions and my goal. I didn't turn into a daily drinker. I drank when I had a chance. I finished high school and decided to stay locally, to go to college. I went to Youngstown State University. And at the same time, I enrolled in school. I took a job in a large retirement community, housekeeping department. So I worked, went to school full time. I drank when I had a chance. No consequences. Life was perking along. And no problems. 3 years into it, a gal came to work at the retirement community for a summer job. She was a nursing student. And a year later, we were married, and life changed a little bit. By then, I didn't want to be a politician or a lawyer anymore. I was interested in this long-term care administration. So she had finished school before I did because I had to do some additional stuff, do an internship, do some additional training. During that period, we had a couple of kids, but the drinking wasn't a problem. And when I finally finished school and I was ready to look for a job in this field, I thought to myself, is this movement going to be a problem for hiring managers? And I told you about the Monsignor, great state of Ohio. When I went to get my driver's permit, I'll never forget, we go to the place, me and my dad, I take the test, standing at the counter. There's a woman behind the counter tearing all the carbon paper apart, and they had computers back then. And I'm standing there, and there's this guy behind the counter, standing against the wall. He's got a uniform on, and he's a state patrolman. So he's standing there, and he looked at me, and he looked at me, and finally he said it. He said, "What are you doing here?" I thought to myself, he must know the Monsignor. And so I said to the guy happily, I said, "I just took my test for a permit, and I'm waiting for this lady to issue me a driver's permit." And he said to me and my dad, he said, "You don't think the state of Ohio is going to let him drive a car, do you?" So here's another guy in a position of authority. Got a different uniform, but he got one on. And making decisions about my life. Doesn't know me, doesn't even know my name. So the resentment started to pile up. But I was a stuffer, and I stuffed them. They had to go through a bunch of red tape in about 18 months. And it's important for me to note this because sometimes I forget to leave this out. That I finally did get a driver's license. Because I'd go to meetings and do leads. And I'd be walking out the door, there'd be 2 or 3 guys standing in the back of the room saying, "Hey, need a ride home?" So it's no, I got the driver's license. Oh, okay. Let that sink in. So that was on my mind. So I'm thinking, how difficult is this going to be? So I'm sending out resumes and not getting any calls. I knew it was the movement because I had a couple of phone interviews that went so well, they couldn't wait for me to get in there. And once they got in there and had a look at me, their whole attitude changed. So I was getting a little discouraged. But the guy who was my preceptor knew what was going on, and he called me one day and he said, "Look," he said, "I know a guy. There's a hospital in Akron, and they need a guy part-time that has a license like you have. I think you ought to go to work for them build your resume, and go from there. Okay, that's what I did. I took this position. It was a 16-hour-a-week position. I worked very hard, very motivated, and innovative, and creative. And over the next 3.5 years, I went from a 16-hour-a-week administrator to a full-time vice president for support services and long-term care. I had a desk on Mahogany Road. I had an assistant, made a great salary, and I had the respect and the appreciation of my peers. On the weekends, I was drinking like they were going to stop making it. And it became a problem, not for me, but for my former wife. I didn't understand. I didn't see it. It's amazing how everybody sees before we do. But that's the way it was. I thought, I don't have a problem, she does. So it led to a separation and a subsequent divorce. And then in 1993, on a weekend, I got in trouble as a direct result of alcohol. Go figure. So I go see my boyhood neighbor, who's not a judge anymore, but he's still an attorney. I tell him what happens. First thing he says to me is, "Rock, you drink too much." I did not want to hear that. I said, "Look, you need to fix this. That's what you do." He said, "All right, we'll see what we can do." So we go to court, and I'll never forget, we're walking away from the courthouse, him and I. Everything was settled. All I had to do was write a check. No other consequence, nothing, just write a check. So he said to me, he said, "Look," he said, "you got off pretty easy this time." He said, "You ought to consider what I said about trying to do something like your drinking. Because if you don't, something worse is going to happen. I won't be able to fix it as easy." I'm listening, but I'm not hearing. Yeah, I know. Here to tell you the guy was a prophet, because a year later, I'm down there again, and this time the mess is a little bigger. And he looked at it and he said, "You stepped in it this time. This is not going away as easy as the last time. There's going to be some pain here." And there was. I lost that job. Some other things happened, and one of them were that I got court ordered to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. So my first appearance in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous was not because I saw the light. I was here because I was feeling the heat. I had a judge who was serious about what he did, and so I had to go to meetings. So I went to meetings, on paper as we call it, and I was usually the last one there, first one out. I didn't want what you had, and I wasn't going to anyone to get it. I just need to get this paper signed and get out of here. And so I did that. And later that year, my father died, suddenly and unexpectedly. And drinking really went off the rails, to the extent that my family was pretty worried about my well-being. And my one sister had a friend who was a long-timer then, and this guy came to our house. The old-fashioned 12-step call. I didn't know what that was at the time. I don't hear too much about that anymore with all the treatment centers, but this guy came to our house on a Sunday to talk to me. I had no clue. And I didn't understand why this guy would stick around after I was being so rude and so ignorant about the whole thing. See, I didn't know anything about giving it away to keep it. I didn't know anything about the hand AA being there for the suffering alcoholic. I didn't know about the importance of service work or any of that stuff. This guy did, I didn't. So the upshot of the visit was that I agreed to go to a alcohol treatment center for a detox day. Felt like I had to go just to get people off my back. And I went for a 5-day stay. Still wasn't convinced that alcohol was my problem. But I went and got out and decided, you know what, I just need to lay off. Because I could see the disdain in everybody's face who would look at me, would love me. So I didn't drink. A job came available in Cleveland. So I took the job and I moved up to Cleveland. And I worked and I didn't drink. And after several years, the job ended, not because of performance or anything, it just ended. So I looked around for a little longer in Cleveland market, couldn't find anything, and decided to go back to Youngstown. So I go back to Youngstown, and within a month of returning to Youngstown, I landed this great job with a huge healthcare system in the Youngstown area. Great job. So I got this job, and I'm working, and several months go by, and come home one day, and have a thought that I could drink. It's been a long time. I know where all the pitfalls are. Certainly won't make those mistakes again. And that's where I was. I didn't realize until I saw a talk by Father Martin. Father Martin talks about an encounter he had with Bill Wilson in 1961 at a conference. And Bill Wilson, and Father Martin asked Bill Wilson, he said, "What's this insanity you're talking about? Step 2 came to believe in a power greater than yourself to restore you to sanity. What's the insanity?" He said, "People who don't drink can be crazy too. We all know that." He said, "So what's the insanity?" And Father Martin said, Bill Wilson said, "The kind of insanity I'm talking about is this. No matter what length of sobriety somebody has, they think for whatever reason they can pick up a drink and it's going to be different this time." That's what I'm talking about. Well, there it was, but I didn't know anything about that at that time. I was just thinking, should I, shouldn't I, and I did. So things didn't go wrong all of a sudden, but it was like a 3-year slow motion train wreck. And man, when it crashed, bad. I disgraced myself professionally. It was terrible. My first thought was, you got to get out of Youngstown, man. My first thought wasn't do something about your drinking. And I'm going to find another great organization outside of Youngstown. And I did. In a short period of time, I found a great position in Ashland, Ohio. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to move down there. I'm going to take this job. I'm going to buy a house. It's going to be great. I don't know why I thought that. I didn't do anything to change myself. But that's what I thought. So I moved down there. I buy a house. I'm working this job. And it was different this time. I got fired in 18 months. And again, thinking to myself, what the heck? It's not alcohol. You know what your problem is? Authority. You just can't work for people. So I had this great idea, I thought, and I had some money, and I had some credit, and I thought, you know what? I'll solve this all. I'll start my own company, I'll go to work for myself, eliminate this authority problem, and it's going to be okay. I submit to you, my friends, it's a bad idea to go to work for a raging alcoholic. And you'll be surprised to know that didn't work out. And if you're a history buff by any standard, on December 7th, 2007, that's when it all crashed down. And I was out of ideas, I was out of money, I was out of excuses. Didn't know what to do. Started drinking, really drinking. Passed out drunk drinking. Not wake up, come to. One day after another. After another. It got closer and closer to Christmas. Here I am in this hell that I created for myself. I put a distance between me and everybody who loved and cared about me. And here I was. Christmas Eve, I was just a mess. Between the physical symptoms and the mental anguish. Jamie and I were talking last night, I don't know which one's worse. I think mental anguish, but I just couldn't quiet this. I couldn't quiet this. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to kill myself. I didn't know what to do. And then got into Christmas Day. And got worse. Now I put this God of mine, who I believed in, on the shelf a long, long time before that. Because of this movement thing. I thought, you know what, I reached out to this guy before. He didn't help me. He didn't help me. So we had that distance. It wasn't that I didn't believe in him. I just thought there was something. He didn't believe in me. I didn't know what it was. There I was in the darkest, most hopeless place. On the bottom of page 25 of the big book, the last paragraph, paraphrased that you were seriously as alcoholic as we were. We believed there was no middle of the road solution. We had crossed into a region which has no returns for human aid. We were left with two alternatives. One was to continue to blot out the consciousness of our entire situation. The second one was to accept spiritual help. Thomas Merton put it like this. Merton said, when you're reduced to your final extreme and there's no further evasion, the decision's a difficult one. It's made in the heart of darkness. We who are destroyed and seem to be living in hell miraculously choose God. And then there's the greatest alcohol story that I know of, and that's the prodigal. The prodigal son. Wanted half the inheritance before his father died. Selfish, self-centered, sound familiar? It did to me. Wanted the money, wanted it now. Got what he wanted. Went to a foreign land. Squandered the money. Found himself starving to death while he was feeding pigs. Had his moment of clarity. I should arise and go to my father. There's the metaphor right there. That's what I did. Prayed the most sincere prayer that I've ever prayed in my life. Many of you probably prayed it yourself. God, please help me. And after that prayer, I felt something that I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't even realize I lost it. It was hope. I became hopeless. And after I prayed that prayer, I thought, you know what? I saw the faces of my children. They had smiles on me. I started thinking of things that could be. But I knew I had to do something. I thought of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a friend. I was telling Jamie the story last night. He was a physician. Died suddenly a number of years ago on a golf course. And we were friends for a long time. I'd go see him routinely. He'd look at me and say, my God, Rock, you need to do something about your drinking. I said, oh, Rick, I'm fine, I'm good. So I tracked him down on Christmas Day and told him my situation. He said, you gotta go somewhere. You gotta get some help. He said, you just can't quit drinking on your own, you'll die. I said to my friend, I can't do that. And then he said to me angrily, what do you want me to do for you? So the genius in me says, a number of years ago, I went to a place for detox, and they gave me, it came to mind, Librium. I said, call me something in. I wish I could have seen the look on his face. Call you something in. So I convinced my friends to call me in a prescription. There was one pharmacy open on Christmas Day in Ashland. He said, okay, we'll try this. If it doesn't go your way, then we're doing it my way. I said, okay. So he called me in the prescription. I got off the phone, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, somebody's got to go get that. Yeah. So there was no one I could call. I had one beer left. And I knew that I was done drinking for the sake of drinking. But this made me feel well enough to go get that prescription. And I want to remember exactly the last time that committed to the idea. So I opened the beer and I looked at the clock, and it was 5:10 p.m. on December 25th, 2007. By God's grace and you people and the program at AA, that's the last time I've had a drink. So I went and I got that prescription, came home, and don't recommend you do this. It worked for me. I detoxed by myself at home. So after 4 or 5 days, I start getting some balance back and some clarity, and I got to get to an AA meeting. Got to get connected. Thinking to myself, you're in Ashland, Ohio. I was a new transplant to Ashland. I didn't know anything other than, I thought, man, all that's down here are churches. I wonder how far I have to go to a meeting. Yeah, that's why I belong to a home group that's called Sicker Than Most. And just as a side note, if you're ever in Youngstown at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, you're welcome to come and see that we live up to our reputation. So I go to the computer and look up on the Akron Intergroup website to see where there's meetings near me. You know, God's doing for us. There were 7 meetings every day within walking distance of my house. Apparently they drank in Ashland too. So that was my start. I walked into a closed discussion meeting on a Sunday night, 6:30 meeting, basement of a church. I love leading in church basements. That's where I feel closest to my God. And I go down there, and it's a huge place with a huge basement. It's like a corn maze. All of these different places. I hear noise down one hall and thinking, man, those people are having a good time. That can't be it. So I turn around and go the other way, and here comes 2 guys. And they said, you looking for something? I said, yeah, where's the AA? He said, it's down there. So I put my head down, and I followed them. And I walked in that room and saw smiling faces and laughter. And on the wall, there was a big sign that said, hope is found here. I knew I was in the right place. And now I wanted what you had. Now I was going to go to any length to get it. And I got busy in a hurry. The sponsor I got there, still my sponsor, got active. Someone talking earlier in their lead about 90 and 90. And I said to those guys, how often should you do that? A long time they told me, 4 times a year. So, yeah. But I wanted it. year passed by quickly. God had given me some space between the tornado, like the book talks about, that was out there. I made a mess. It was out there. Creditors are funny. I don't mean funny ha-ha either. You start ignoring them, they don't like that. So I had all this stuff I had to deal with. I seem to tell you at that point in time I was a materialist. I believe that people were judged by what they had. Stuff. I had stuff. Hold on to that stuff. Know what to do. St. Augustine said God wants to give us all kinds of great things, but he can't. Because our hands are full with all kinds of stuff that we think is important. So there was a long timer in a meeting. I went there early, and I was talking to him. I don't know if I can do this, Gene. He said, do what, Rob? And I told him. He said, it's simple. I said, really? He said, yeah. It comes down to this basic thing. You either trust God or you don't. There's no gray area in here. You trust him? Is he everything to you, or is he not? Once you figure that out, you'll be fine. So I went through everything I had to go through. And it wasn't easy, but I did it. And I didn't drink. And when I was done, I was pretty much homeless. I was homeless. I lost my house. So I called my sainted mother, God rest her soul. My sister, she used to tease me. She said, our mom thinks you walk on. But she never turned her back on me. So I called her and said, no, I need to come home. So here I am, 57-year-old college-trained professional has to go home to his mom. So I packed up my stuff that I had left. And when I was leaving Ashland, those guys said, don't miss a beat. Make sure you get hooked up to AA as soon as you get back there. And that's what I did. And I couldn't find a job. Shocker. The field I work in, everybody knows one another. I did not have a great reputation. I led a meeting in Canfield, Ohio. And after the meeting, a guy came up to me and thanked me for my lead. He said, oh yeah, by the way, I do what you do. And I work for a guy that owns buildings. And he's one of us too. Just send us your resume. Oh, great. They send him this resume. They call me in a week and said, hey, we have this property up in Cleveland. I said, oh yeah, I worked in Cleveland Market. What was the name of the place? And they told me. I knew the place. We used to make fun of people who worked there because we thought, wow, what did they do to wind up in that dump? Yeah. So here it is. I want this job. This job's going to solve all my problems. Put my best foot forward, do the interview, do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. 10 days later, I find out I didn't get the job. I called my sponsor. I said, hey, what's up with this? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. I'm praying. I'm going to meeting. I'm helping people. I'm doing everything. He said, look, God will put you where he needs you when he's ready. You believe that, don't you? So you swallow hard and say, yeah. So God didn't make me wait too much longer. I got a call from the same company shortly thereafter and said, hey, Rock, we got a brand new building. It's about 20 minutes from where you live. We'd like you to come to work for us. The reason I tell that story, it makes this point. And the point is this. God's delays are not God's denials. God knows what we need. God knows what's best for us. But it's on His timetable, not mine. See, I see that shiny object. Say, give me that. That'll solve all my problems. But you know what? We cheat ourselves every time we do that. Every time we do that. Instead of waiting patiently for what God has in store for us, we want to rush it and say, you know what? I'll take that back. Like I said to you earlier, look at it. So I took this job and I worked it for 3 years, very successfully. But I started having this feeling, you know what? I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I didn't know where I was supposed to go, but I wasn't supposed to be here. I put in a notice. I worked out a notice. I hadn't done that in a long time. I cleaned out my own desk. I hadn't done that for a long time. I walked out without security. All the other things people take for granted. And I was off. And during that period of time, I had 4 grandchildren born. And my sons wanted me there. 3 great sons who saw me go through some stuff that I wish they didn't, but they did. But I was there. And I did whatever I could. There was things at my church that needed done. I was there. I did all these things, and you know what? All my needs were met. I didn't have any problems. And when the time came to go back to work, it was another guy in the fellowship who called me and said, hey, I got this. Are you interested? And every job since that one where the guy came up to me after my leave is a direct result of through someone in the fellowship with Alcoholics Anonymous. So, I love this thing of ours. I love everything about it. I get to meet wonderful people like you all. But the thing about doing God's will, sometimes you got to get a little bit out of your comfort zone. Standing in front of groups like this is not my comfort zone. I'd rather be in the back of the room. But when you sign up and say, okay, then you take the assignment that's given to you. And so that's what I try to do to the best of my ability. I understand what my purpose is today. God doesn't give us things just because willy-nilly. Because our handicap, I don't like that word, but our handicap, our deficit, our shortcoming, whatever it might be, something that God gave us to fulfill His purpose. God is sovereign. He knows everything that we need and whatever goes on. And all that happens, good or bad, has a specific reason. So, as Jamie mentioned at the beginning, I'll read this poem because it talks about purpose much better than I can. And I'd like to read it to you now. You are who you are for a reason. You're part of an intricate plan. You're a precious, perfect, unique design called God's special woman or man. You look like you look for a reason. Our God has made no mistake. He knit you together within the womb. You're just what He wanted to make. The parents you had were the ones He chose, and no matter how you may feel, they were custom designed with God's plan in mind, and they bear the Master's seal. Know that trauma you faced was not easy. God wept that it hurt you so. But it was allowed to shape your heart so that into His likeness you grow. You are who you are for a reason, informed by the Master's rod. You are who you are, beloved, because there is a God. One more thing in America. We hear the phrase, more will be revealed. More will be revealed. Anybody hear that? I heard that when I came in. I thought, what does that mean? What does that mean? I gotta start remembering things I did in black eyes. I don't know. What does that mean? It's not it. Like 10 years ago, I was leading a meeting in Hubbard, Ohio. One of the spiritual giants of our fellowship, not with us anymore. 45 years that was his home group. He came up to me after the meeting and said, thanks for the lead, Rocco, and I know something that might interest you to know. I said, yeah, what's that, Moon? He said, well, the old Monsignor was a friend of mine. I thought, oh boy, he didn't like the Excedrin headache comment. He said, might surprise you to know that he had a 1-year coin dropped in his coffin. He died on his 1-year anniversary of being a member of this fellowship. I got to tell you, the way I felt about the old Monsignor for, I don't know, 50 years or more, like that, gone. Ain't one of us, just one of us. Just another guy trying to make his way. Deficits, shortcomings, character defects, all the things that we all struggle with from time to time. What a blessing. I can't say thank you enough to Alcoholics Anonymous for all that you've given me. And I'll tell you something, I had a 6-hour ride over here yesterday. If you were with me, you would have heard 6 of the best 1-hour leads you'd ever heard in your life. So let's end with this. These are the last words in Shakespeare's last play called All's Well That Ends Well. And they go like this: love all, trust a few, and to no one do harm. My name is Rocco. I'm a very grateful alcoholic. That's my story.